Hello, welcome to another FMOD deep dive. Today we're talking to Joonas Turner with his work on Go Mecha Ball. The big topic of this is the amount of detail that Joonas has described with his sound design. The game is all about being procedurally generated, and Joonas has reflected this in the details he's added in his sounds. As a result, he's made full use of his audio middleware, FMOD, to make sure it does all the heavy lifting for him. In every event, there are several layers designing the sound within the middleware, as opposed to doing it all one by one individually inside of his DAW. And the result is truly interesting, creative insights into how to use middleware and how to design a system that matches such a procedurally generated game. At each chapter, Joonas will throw in insights from all of his years of experience working on indie games such as Cult of the Lamb, Noita, Broforce, and general tips and ideas that will be useful for beginners and intermediates alike. There's so much useful content in this deep dive, so if a particular chapter catches your eye, then jump straight there. And before we start, I wanted to mention that if you are learning FMOD, then check out the link in my description below. I've created a one-of-a-kind course that I think will be very useful for beginners and intermediates looking to improve their FMOD skills. Otherwise, we'll start with a general chat on what it's like to work on a game dev cycle as a game audio professional, and then we'll jump straight into FMOD.
Okay, so Go Mecha Ball. And I've been seeing you posting about this for like months, if not years, before the game actually came out, and getting really excited about just the tiny little things that you were posting, the snippets. And I think I messaged you a bunch of times saying like, Joonas, like when are we going to hear more? Like, when are you going to tell me more? Because I want to know. And now we can talk about it, which is great. And and having played the game also gave me more insights. And I stopped many times, by the way, and like fiddled with the audio settings and been like, oh, okay. And like trying to hear the process unfold. The first thing that comes to mind is the wormhole. Leaving the level. I would love to talk about the wormhole. Like I posted it on Twitter because it was so interesting for people to see, like to know about the fact that you finish the level, you get rewarded with this nice little ambient kind of chill out track, like good job, well done. And then as you approach this wormhole, you've just managed to put even more adaptiveness into the track, into the game that wasn't asked of you. Like the level is done, job done, it sounded great, well done. And then you still added this extra layer, just this little thing, so that as you're approaching the wormhole, something truly interesting happens. Like,
thank you. That was actually very last minute as well. That was like one of the last things I did.
interesting. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. It was a really fun project to work on. Indeed, I had like 2.5 years to work on it and just experimented a bunch. And the game changed a few times during development. So a lot of things that I'll be showing in FMOD, some are kind of remnants from old times used in another way, like reused and stuff. I mean, sometimes you might see notes and memos. People watching this don't read the memos. They might be very random. But yeah, that thing was, I think with the ending, I remember playing the game and I was like, the music's a bit too static. Let's do something cool here. And especially, we got visual effects into the game very last minute as well. And when I saw the visual effects and stuff, I was like, I need to do something. And I was just messing about with FMOD, and it was relatively easy to hook up stuff. We had a lot of stuff. We made the game in Unity, so we had a lot of like, kind of what would you call them, like hooks in Unity that I could mess about with. And one was the level ending stuff. So I was like, what if I just hook the pitch of the event into that hook? And that's what it is. It's dumb simple, but cool.
Absolutely. Cool is definitely the word. And it's interesting that it was like an afterthought. And I always wonder, like, okay, yes, it was a last minute thing, but like as you work on a project, you kind of exponentially get like more inspired, more excited, and like more productive. So maybe towards the end, it feels like a last minute thing that happened in like an instant, but that's because of the point of where you were in the project, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and especially like a game that was very iterative. Like we had the basic concept always in mind, kind of the actual gameplay, but what the game itself was very kind of iterative in all aspects of the game. And as it was so iterative, only at the end we knew what the game actually is. And that's kind of, you've had all these different experiments, and now at the end you can be like, hey, now I know how everything kind of works and what the game is. Now it's time to kind of start finalizing these things, and kind of as knowing what everything is, it's kind of easy to then just quickly go and add stuff or take away stuff.
Okay, we haven't even jumped into FMOD, and it's already interesting to me. So the idea that yes, as a project, you grow with a project, which is why we should start working as early as possible, like at least in the ideation to just understand, right? So I mean, you and I both understand that perfectly well. Any developers out there, please involve everybody from the start in some capacity. So then you can grow, you can make mistakes, you can fail, like just the same way that the developers, the artists, everybody else is. So at the start, you start making things that very probably at the end you might change because of everything you just stated. So how do you avoid spending too much time and effort at the start so that at the end you don't have to replace everything?
Yeah, that's oh wow, that's actually a surprisingly difficult question to answer. Um, I mean, I'm gonna give like a first answer, which is gonna suck for anyone who's starting. This is very non-informative, but that's kind of experience. Like I worked on a bunch of games before, so I kind of know how to navigate a start of a project and kind of in my head visualize the different steps. So you have this start of the game, or actually even before the start of the game, then you have kind of the beginning middle, and then you have the middle, then you have the ending middle, and then you have the end of the game and release. And that's how I think of it. I chunk it in these chunks. So I know at the start I will just do kind of rough stuff. I know that they might get completely replaced or adjusted and stuff. And towards the middle step of the project, that's kind of when I start locking down things. I'm like, no, these are definitely in. This is how these systems work. And then at the very end, as you have everything already locked, you still have space to experiment because you can always just go back. You can always go back to the middle part, kind of revert back. So I kind of do these kind of steps. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's kind of what I wanted to hear. Like just like at the start, it feels more placeholdery because you don't want to create like one amazing sound effect only to realize later it doesn't fit with all of the other sounds later. So that makes total sense.
Yeah, once I show the FMOD session, it will make even more sense how this thinking with Go Mecha Ball works. Because it's a game that I made extremely differently than anything I've made really before. Because even the sound effects are generative inside FMOD. Like I didn't make like one cool sound effect and that's it. It's lots of layers.
Oh my God, please, let's go. Let's jump in because I'm dying of excitement.
So indeed, the game we use procedural animations. We don't have like quite often in games you have like an animation frames. We have zero animation frames.
Wow.
Everything is like by a code.
Sorry, yeah, because I remember Jacob sharing that video like I guess years ago, and it just blew up. It blew up on Twitter because everyone was like, "Oh my God, the procedurally generated spider, the first boss that you fight," and everybody lost their mind.
Yeah, it's really fun, but it was really challenging as well. Because indeed, we did not have animation frames, so I had to kind of make sounds that could be modular. So that's why I have like all the hinges are their own things. Because we might have, let's say, the spider boss, for example, like its feet can do like a thing, or they can just go like this, or they can do that kind of a thing. And everything has to be catered for without animation frames. So it's just a bunch of triggers. We have a lot of triggers. Okay, now this moves, play this sound. And then we have like some things in animations that are time-based. That time-based thing can also change depending on various things. So I couldn't rely purely on timing either. So I had to kind of design around kind of this, I guess, limitation. It's not really limitation. It's the opposite of limitation. Freedom. Yeah.
Right. It's more like a guidance, direction, perhaps. It's really like I do this on a smaller level anyway, because I know that animations will change, like they will, and mechanics will change. Nothing's set in stone, nothing's concrete, especially not in game development. However, this like you had to do this, like you had to design the sounds in FMOD essentially, like the individual parts, you imported them. But this is a perfect example of like you needed FMOD to be as flexible as possible.
Yeah. And I mean, here's like a motor of one of the a ball. But so in the game, for those who don't know, in Go Mecha Ball you play as a mech, kind of a, let's say, a walking mech dude, and then it can turn into a ball. and then you can, roll and dash with the ball, and then transform. It's just a button press. You do the thing,
I'm
and
going to show them a video, but your hands are fantastic.
yeah, it's the easiest way to visualize, show it with visuals. Um, but yeah, so we have kind of motor things, but then there are some modifiers to those. So there's just a mech rolling. So we have a load, just like car motor stuff. Then I have a parameter for turning.
What does the
Then,
turning do? What does the turning add?
so the turning, let's see, I don't even remember. Um, I am adjusting the volume and pitch of various stuff.
Okay.
Like or everything kind of adjusts something. So the game, I actually get to the mixing and kind of modular side. Well, okay.
Sure.
Um,
We can
so a
wait
lot of,
for explaining something.
yeah.
I didn't
So a
want
lot of things are modular, and a lot of things can affect other things. Like this is also a hard game to show purely inside FMOD, and there's no way I can really visually show what happens when you play the game. But a lot of elements inside the game adjusts, like other events can adjust other events, and in the mixer side, at some point I'll show you the mixer, which is that's gets a little bit mad and obsessive, I guess. A lot of things can change and affect other things via like side chaining or programmery stuff. But we'll get to that later. So yes, turning is just when the mech turns. Because when I design sounds for games, I really like when the player's inputs actually feel like you're doing something. So, if you just have a motor and you turn and nothing happens, it's kind of, to me personally, a bit boring. So I like to have something for the turning. So it feels like when you turn, it kind of, you can already hear and feel that you are doing something extra. So turning, and then you can go into this mode called ball fire, which is not the official term, it's just my FMOD term. That's when the player gets so fast that they kind of flames come out of them. So ideally you'd be in full speed then. It's really hard. These things, happen in game dynamically. Me with a mouse will not give the same
no, but it's
output.
interesting to hear them separately as well, like soloed, which is also
It's like playing with faceplant. Then we have something called ball pipe, which is when you go inside a pipe, it's like a soft mute. And then you have like a pipe sound on top that comes from the pipe itself.
awesome. So cool. And I also noticed that you used an action sheet, and assuming everything here is asynchronous, so I'm assuming that's the reason. Did you use a timeline to begin with, or did you just go straight for action sheet?
I went straight for this, yeah. It's just simple. I mean, I didn't actually, that was not even a meditated thought. This is the first thing that I did. We kept it.
Yep, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it works. Timeline, because with this, I don't really need a timeline. I could kind of, yeah, jump into like regions and stuff, but I can do all of that with the parameters really.
Yeah.
So I have no reason to really use the timeline. But yeah, this is actually pretty simple. As you can see, it's only one sound per kind of a thing.
Mm.
Oh, and the idles maybe. I mean, it's just like many people have made car motor stuff, so I'm kind of inspired by that stuff. So you have a, idle loops, and then load loops. So idle, that's so you start with idle, and then the load fades in, the idle fades out. Very basic, but
Yeah.
it works.
Sounds
But it
great.
works.
Sounds great, man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and all the mechs have their own loops and own sound sets. So this is the brawler mech. so loud with my headphones. Ooh. But yeah. So all the mechs are different. They look different. They're made out of different materials. That was another big thing for me with Go Mecha Ball. I want the materials that you see to also be audible. So the normal mech is kind of this sleek mech. The brawler is kind of more this heavy thing with like metal plates. Looks like a caterpillar armadillo thingy. So it has these kind of metal platey sounds. Very clanky. Then we had a organic mech, which is, very meaty, like a plant-based one, but kind of meaty. This one
That was
had, oh, it just has little extra sounds added to it.
Was that Foley? Was that voice acting as well?
Yeah, that's just literally
Amazing. Amazing.
pitch down. Yeah.
It's great.
Um,
It just sounds like a big meatball flying
yeah,
around.
that's what it is. I'm glad. What was the? Oh, it's called Ninja over here. Wow, that's old. And then we had like a very sleek, kind of more kind of fine tech mech. Oh, that rhymes. Fine tech mech.
Fine tech mech. Nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's go over it. Okay, cool. So I think a really interesting moment in the gameplay is when the player gets hit. I think it's quite a moment because there's, something happens in the gameplay. I'd really like to hear you talk through how that works inside of FMOD.
Oh, right. So the player getting hit. Okay, so we actually have a few things happening here. So the player gets hit. So, and I call them get hits. That's been my staple for every game. Actually, I got that get hit from Blambeer's JW, I think. I think we started naming things in Nuclear Throne, get hit, and it always just stayed in my mind, get hit. It kind of sounds gangster.
You
So
know, I took this from you. Now all of mine get hit because of our chats.
nice. Yeah, I mean, makes sense. You get hit. So yes, get hit. We have multiple things happening here. So we have the ducking, but also we have like depending on your health, I think. Let me just double check. Yes, I remember correct. So depending on your health, the lower your health is, the higher this gets hit parameter will get. I will first talk about the event and then about the kind of mixery thing. So get hit, we have all these different layers. Lots of these are just the basic kind of uh, sounds for getting hits, like metal and synthesizer stuff. But then I have layers that, oh, I'm pointing with my fingers. Damn, use my mouse. So I adjust volumes of some of the layers. So I have this kind of an alarm synth that happens. Where is it there? Then I have electric sparks. So you will start to hear. So depending on your health, the get hit sound changes a bit, like ringing sparks and kind of other sounds in, and pitching sounds as well. As you can see, here's a bunch of pitch shifting, volume stuff happening.
And each of these automation curves just is attached to a different layer from the action sheet that you have all the sounds in, right? Just to explain it a little.
Yes, exactly.
There's a lot of them, but clearly each one of them refers to a different layer inside of the action sheet. And yeah, you've got like
Yes.
layers or 6 layers. Yeah.
Yes. Then I have a set parameter player get hit, but I actually This might be something ancient as well. Oh, we actually might set things in the music somehow, but so when everything happens in the game, both having this get hit automate as well as the music ducking down and doing the glitchy thing, them together kind of give you that vacuum feel. And I like to do that with pretty much all of the games that I work on. I like to kind of make the music duck or do something when the player gets hit because the music is something continuous. Or if there's ambiences in the game or any continuous sounds, I like to kind of duck everything when the player gets hit because it just because you have music, you have ambience, it's always present. You get used to it subconsciously, and then when you take that away, it gives you a kind of a little jump
Yeah,
as a
that's why it's
human.
such a memorable moment. Just like again, referencing one of the other games, like Cult of the Lamb has a
Mm.
perfect and it's kind of set up that way. The gameplay it allows, you're not getting hit like 10 times in one go. So you kind of have space for it, which is and then you've put this awesome audio moment in that space, which I think is really creative. My question is all of this ducking, does it rely or how much does it rely on the in-game engine stuff? Or are you doing most of it from FMOD with like command instruments? Say, and if you
It's mostly FMOD, I think. It's mostly inside FMOD. Yeah, if I remember correct. Yeah, I think it's mostly within FMOD, except for the get hit parameter that's tied to the health of the player. That's in-game stuff, like in-game code stuff that I can't really set up inside FMOD, or at least I don't know how to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it sounds great. I love that you're adding detail to, describe how much more damage they get, right? With the electrical sparks and the ringing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks. And it's very, how would I say, it's very subtle, but when you kind of get used to things, even a small subtle thing, kind of, at least this is how I like to think about it. I don't know if it's actually like this, but in my mind, it's like this. When you have something kind of continuous that the player gets used to, if you do small variations within that, you kind of subconsciously can pick like tension and stuff like that. But I mean, I might be bullshitting here, but that's how I think of things.
No, I agree. I agree. It's these small subtle things because when you play a game, when you want to finish a game and really play it well, like you have to engross yourself. Like everything about your being has to be part of that game. So any small little sound, like I'm 120 hours into Helldivers, and every little sound now I pick up on. So yeah, it's totally relevant.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So the machine gun, you had the heavy machine gun, I think. I really
Oh,
want
right.
a little bit about the compression that you used because I remember you posting a video on Twitter, which I'll show before, and I asked you a question about it because I was like, I noticed that the and when I played it as well, that the compressor does something interesting with the machine gun. Do you want to talk a little
Hmm.
about that and why?
Oh, the compressor. Let's see. There's multiple parts for like machine guns and continuous firing sounds. So yeah, when you shoot with the machine gun, we have this parameter called continuous fire dimmer, which should dim the sound. No, it is. Oh, very slightly, very slightly. So when you shoot with a machine gun, I have this parameter that's very slightly dims the sound and pitches it up, or pitches the mechanics up. When I say mechanics, I mean kind of these clanky sounds of a weapon. So I have all these clanky sounds, and I pitch those up when you shoot. Actually, can I solo? No, maybe I can't. It's very subtle, but when you shoot actually in the game, the kind of tick, 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 you can kind of hear that. It doesn't indicate your ammo. It's just for continuous fire to make continuous firing sound a bit more interesting, or like the weapon heating or something. And in addition to that, in the mixer window, when the weapons fire, and if you don't hit anything, the sound will play normally. But if you hit something, let's say you hit an enemy, it will start ducking down the player weapon sounds. So you get the initial punch from shooting, and if you hit something, you will. I want the player's focus to be more on the thing that they hit than just hearing ba 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 ba. And how I achieve this is by adjusting. the player weapon buzzes compressor a bit. Here you can see I am adjusting the gain. So I am lowering the gain by 6 dB decibels, and it's very fast. It's almost immediate, and it's just very fast interaction because I don't want the situation of you hitting something and then you shoot again and it's, kind of silent and no punch. Rather, I have it like this, where if there is, a tail of a sound, that would get kind of cut or like dimmed. Or if you shoot and hit something, that will get dim. But I don't want it to be so that you hit something, you hit, and you shoot again, and that shot would be like, because that would suck. I just want the button press to always be king, both the button press and the receiver of this button press, of the actions from this button press.
Right. Okay. So you're following the narrative that hearing the get hit sound, the enemy get hit sound, is more important than your gun sound in that moment. So
yes,
space for it. So it's just a simple, well, I say simple, but very cleverly put ducking system. So the volume goes down, but we're not interfering with the following shot of the gun because of the threshold, I assume, that you set, like you said, so that and the release, so that so that you hear the next bullet. You always hear that attack, that button press. Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah. And similar with the ratio, I push that up as well. So it compresses more. So you start to get less of the transient of shooting. And again, it's very fast. Well, actually, that's for the side chain, I guess. But the more I compress, the less kind of, the less transient you will have, essentially, or a shorter transient. So again, gives kind of more room for whatever you're hitting to play. Yeah.
I noticed something else about the machine gun in the action sheet in the event.
Oh, yeah.
I know. So you've got everything in an action sheet. So it's just a one shot. Got it concurrently, so all the layers play at the same time. I noticed in the macros you have max instances at this machine gun, and you've got the stealing as the oldest, which is interesting because I think a lot of people, myself included, if I was designing machine gun, I'd probably put some sort of a loop region on a timeline sheet with the instances in like a multi-instrument rather than an action sheet that has a one-shot sound.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah. I mean, I have done that in the past too, where I had like like a machine gun shoot loop. But I kind of hated the idea of, well, at least this is my experience. Like I worked in a project that had it like that, but then I had to time the loop to the kind of to the time of the shooting in game. So if you could see like the muzzle flash, it had to be timed to that, like the actual loop itself. And having it like this, if you trigger this every time you shoot the projectile, it will always be in sync. But if you have a loop, it can drift out of sync depending on various factors, unless you have like synchronized markers or something. But this is just a simpler way of doing it, I feel like.
And the instances, can you talk about why two, why oldest?
Oldest, I mean, as far as I understand, oldest, like if I shoot 2 times, the first shot is older than the second, right? Yeah, so why would I want to hear I want to hear the new shot instead of hearing the previous one. Kind of, to me personally, makes sense, I hope.
Yeah, I'm throwing you obvious questions, by the way, because I know a lot of people.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I should have stated that. Like that's why when I'm saying like I'm not questioning it, I'm just like, that's interesting.
Oh, no.
I should tee you up that way. And I suppose you found that 2 instances was like the sweet spot, so that you're not hearing them overlapping each other, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of the thinking, but also because if I have too many, exactly, there's lots of overlap and summing, and if you have like lots of base intense material like shooting or so, if you have too much, you will be, you have to think of like phase. That's something that I think about. And if you have lots of base with lots of phase, you will have doubling here and there, or even canceling, depends on the situation. But you will have lots of doubling, like multiplying of the sound. So you will just have, after a while, you would have a lot of bass happening. So 2 felt like a good middle ground. And also in our game, in Go Mecha Ball, we have, I don't even know, we have like I don't know what the maximum even is in FMOD of simultaneous sounds, but we are maxing that about every second.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know about FMOD, but I know like Unity, for instance, has like 127 voices, if that's what you mean. And some
Yeah,
of
I think
virtual.
there's more in FMOD if I remember right. But we have like 500 sounds. I mean, I don't know, every 30, 60 frames.
Okay, this is a really interesting topic because it's something that everybody talks about a lot, like CPU budget and making sure we don't overload in terms of our audio. And obviously, I know that, and you know as well that like every instrument in FMOD counts as a voice, and on
Mhm.
pretty much every event here, and they sound lovely because of it, but you have multiple layers. How have you come across any issues when you were developing it, and how did you overcome it? Like, did this cause any issues having all these lovely layers?
So I was really afraid of that. Like throughout the development, I would always ask the programmer to profile and be honest. Like, please tell me if FMOD is being too heavy. Like, if anything, like if you have memory issues, you have CPU issues, please let me know because I am using a lot of resources. Or at least I thought I was using a lot of resources. But every time we profiled the game, FMOD barely even shows in the profile.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
yeah. So I guess I mean I don't know how much I trust the profiler, but then again, when I profile within FMOD, there's like a profiler inside FMOD, which I recommend everyone to get used to because it's a really handy tool. So I use that profile when it works. So I use that profiler, and even in the profiler, it showed just like minimal percentages of use. So I don't know. We never had any problems with FMOD whatsoever. Just maybe it's just solidly made.
I mean, let's hope so. I mean, yeah, it sounds like it's optimizing things in the way that it should, which is great. I think we
Hmm.
have pre-built fear, right? Because I think I was told straight away by developers, like, let's make sure we don't overgo on like the budget for the audio, and again, in terms of CPU, not
Hmm. Yeah.
um, but I feel like that comes from an I don't know, old school way of thinking where audio was like added at the end. And it really did take up a lot of memory, even like back for like the Super Mario games, like kilobytes or whatever it was. And now we've
Hmm.
given a little bit more room, but we're still being told like, don't do too much, don't go crazy. And
Yeah.
there's no fear of it, right? I
Yeah.
and I remember, just to add on to that, I remember talking to you about the whole glitch effect that you added. And I was like, wow, you're doing a lot of live processing. Like, aren't you scared of like overloading? And there you go. This is a perfect game example that, you know, there's
Yeah.
risk as we thought.
Yeah, exactly. Like that was before Go Mecha Ball. I always lived in that world too. Like everyone always told me, like, hey, watch out. Using audio effects, they eat a lot of processing and all this stuff. And I was like, oh no, oh no. But then when I started working on this, I was like, man, but I want to do all these cool things and let's just try. I just decided it was a complete risk, professional risk. I was like, I mean, let's try. If it doesn't work, I'll come up with something else. So let's just try. And I tried. No one complained. Everything worked. I would ask about Profiler all the time. Like every week, every other week, I would ask about it. But I actually asked about it so many times that the programmer told me, Jonas, I will tell you if there's anything with it. Stop asking me. And I did. Well, actually, I didn't. I still asked him all the time. And it almost became like an inside joke. But yeah, like using delays and stuff. Everyone told me don't use delays. They will just be processing power. And I was like, okay, I will never use delays then. But in this game, I have a lot of delays in use. And I even have like sometimes like multiple reverbs and stuff and just works. There's absolutely zero problems. And
Amazing.
I guess they wouldn't have these effects inside Fmod if you would never use them.
I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing, right? I mean, they do say that some of them are high overhead, some of them are low overhead, etc. Like
Yeah.
distortion, like delay, like you've already said. But I guess it depends per project. I've had projects where they were complaining a lot about the audio. I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like, it seems like a normal amount. Maybe I was quite inexperienced anyway. So at the end of it came down to, I think a lot of it comes down to the code and the way that it's implemented as well. So sometimes maybe audio, or indeed any other department or whatever, gets a bad rap or gets the blame. Maybe it's
Hmm.
not necessarily their responsibility or their fault.
Yeah, exactly. And ooh, yes, actually good that we talked about this because kind of I always tell people like it's good to get audio people from the get-go, which sounds very cliche, but at the same time there are things that like audio people do because we're so tied into the actual gameplay, that you can find issues like bugs and stuff. Like this was not in Go Mecha Ball. This was on another game, but as an example, in this game we had physics interactions. They were sometimes thinking like, hey, something's eating a lot of power, but they didn't really think about it that much. Then when we put audio on top, like at Rockwood Roll, I would hear like it was triggering like 1,000 times, every frame it was trying to trigger something. And it was like, oh wait, why is audio doing that? And then they looked into that and they found this whole kind of collision problem that they had. And then they fixed that. I don't know if they would have caught that without audio, but maybe, maybe not. Who knows?
It's interesting you say that because I've had an experience with that really recently where something was really bugging out. And it was that exact same example. Like I had to tell them like, yo, like you're triggering it too many times. Like I've done everything I can to optimize it and to save it within FMOD. Now I need your help.
Yeah. And
Okay.
also in Go Mecha Ball, we had like some moments where actually, yeah, this is Go Mecha Ball. Yes, in Go Mecha Ball, this is like an old bug where you would like sometimes you would like kill enemies and you would still hear the enemies inside the level. So they were still active even though they were dead. And that was again sound. Like we could hear them. We knew that they were still alive because we heard them and they were performing all the correct actions. But it's stuff like that where sound can actually show you something, even though they have like similar visual cues. But if those get kind of like switched off, but we still have kind of the sound things running, we could find bugs via sounds. So yeah, sounds can be important in those kinds of aspects as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt. I hope you're enjoying the video, and if you are, then could I ask you to please leave a comment down below to help the algorithm do its magic and help this video find its way to other people who might find it useful. Also, please like and subscribe to the channel. I have a ton of more content planned around middleware, around game audio and career building that I know people will find very useful. Okay, back to the video.
Okay. Another
Yeah.
really exciting sound for me is the player collision sound. Because obviously part of Go Mecha Ball is the fact that you can transform into a ball and you can, bulldoze your way through enemies and bounce off of them like a pinball, basically, right? Oh my God, I've just realized it's pinball is an influence, right? And it's like a pinball simulator, some kind of. Maybe I'm
It actually isn't. Like everyone thinks it is, and it makes sense because I thought it was. But apparently, pinball wasn't an original inspiration, and
interesting.
neither was Metroid or Sonic.
Very interesting. That's a whole other conversation we should have.
Yeah.
Okay,
But then
so
again, I don't know if I am the right person actually to talk about these things, but yeah, it wasn't. Well, at least for in my briefing, they weren't inspirations.
sure, yeah, yeah. Okay, so you're bouncing off of enemies, like smashing them off of the map, and that sound, like apart from like the actual boost and the impact, again, those sounds really stick out in the mix in a really punchy way. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like,
Which one specifically?
so the collision sound always sounds super punchy and super
Mhm.
like transient heavy, and it always cuts through the mix. I don't know if you did anything special with that, or you just created, used the similar ducking system, or how did you make sure that that sound really cut through? Because clearly that was the sound you were, making sure was like the focus, right? Whenever it played.
Yeah, yeah, and that's again, like with everything, there's many things in play. So we have the players ball collision, which sounds very rude by itself. So we have these collision sounds, and depends, we have the different velocities for them. So we have collisions not only with enemies, but also the environment. So we have, small collision, light collisions, medium, and then hard. And these are just for the chassis of the ball, of you have the mech and it turns into a ball. I'm thinking in terms of the chassis of the mech. And in ball form, it's kind of more. I wanted you to kind of hear a bit more kind of resonance of the mech turned into a ball, because in the real world you would kind of have more to it. So kind of trying to mimic that. And you can see the meters are going red, but if it ain't red, it's not ready.
It's good.
Um, so here you can see it's kind of a weird looking curve, but this curve is based in gameplay. Originally, they looked much more smoother and nicer, but then I adjusted it while playing the game. Actually, no, while I had the profiler running, I would adjust stuff. So the FMOD profiler is really handy for doing stuff like this. So yeah, you can see light, medium, hard, and I have the different layers recorded here.
And would this sound play at the same time as like the enemy get hit, I assume?
Yes, yes. If you hit an enemy, you would hear this. Then you would hear the enemy get hit sound. Let's take one of those. So I go through everything in sequence. I want to give the spider, because spiders have a fun sound. World 1 spider get hit. Oh, and also with the enemies, we have enemy health. And this would adjust on the fly, which is a frying pan mostly.
Wow, that's fantastic. Oh my God, the source material, like you can't even hear the frying pan in there.
It's the ding. Oh, let's put a. Well, I mean, depends. Again.
Well, you've laid it in such a way that I wouldn't think of frying pan. I just think resonant sound, which is great.
Oops. Yeah, and then bunch of having metal clanky stuff inside a tin box. Oh, that's actually a thing. Kind of branching out here, but it's part of the process. With the enemies, I would try to emulate their chassis. Same with the players. I would try to emulate whatever they are made out of with real life objects. Like the spiders, I'd look at them. They look kind of semi-solid in structure, but then I also wanted to kind of emulate their feet and stuff being a bit more clanky. So the metal parts are kind of their clanky parts, and then their actual chassis would be the frying pan. And then on top, I have my kind of patented thing that I definitely did not, well, heavily get inspired by fighting games like Street Fighter, which is like a explosion sound cut very short to give a bit more punch, and then the so-called voiceovers. And with the voiceovers, these all actually, even though I'm branching, these all do have a function with the actual sound that you hear in the game. Like the voiceovers I first made inside Pro Tools, and I would then route a sum of those through a little speaker, like a guitar, like a little guitar speaker, like a 1 watt kind of a thing. I would place that inside various objects, again, kind of replicating the chassis of the enemy, like, with buckets, or I would like bend metal or whatever to kind of make something like a rough shape of the enemy. And I would place the speaker inside of those. So it would kind of sound like the sound is coming from the actual enemy in the real world. And I kind of believe that because I did it like that, I am making them less dry and more kind of world-like. So in the game, when you hit enemies, it kind of pops out a bit different, because a lot of sounds are just dry kind of sound synthesizers and stuff. But when I place the enemies into the world and I microphone that, it makes them pop out a bit more, a bit different, because they are not so dry, because they have a bit of that kind of real world sound to them. Like if you can hear like this a little bit, like a ring and stuff. Like at least over here in the tail and stuff, it kind of has a different quality of sound to it than, let's say, another kind of an impact.
Right.
It's small things like this.
Yeah, like digital reverb versus like analog reverb, like actual like there's big quality differences in that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And this is in your Save and Sound documentary, right? So which I will Like, I think you have a little snippet. I'll pin that to
Oh,
the
yes.
video so people can watch that later.
Yeah, but it's not like a purely FMOD or a code thing. There's more like sound design helping to make these movements pop out more. Like these are actually meditated kind of approaches to kind of think like, how can I make things feel like if things feel different, if I make them a bit more different, they will feel different inside the game. And like with that, there's a lot of power in that. I will give another example from another game I worked on called Nuclear Throne. Again, in Nuclear Throne, I would record the enemies with another microphone and the player characters with another microphone, and with another sound card as well, with a different preamp and stuff. So the processing for both vocals is different from the get-go, from the very source. And by doing that, they sound and feel a little bit different. So yeah, it's kind of, you can, if you think of things like that, there's a lot of power in that.
That's really cool on a couple levels. The fact that you are creating this aesthetic with the sound, everything is following this kind of process, and therefore it will sound different. It will sound like Go Mecha Ball. And the fact that we can use stuff like FMOD or audio middleware in general so that we can layer these in and then manipulate them even further. So it's like,
yes,
great. I recently spoke to Aaron from FMOD, and he described FMOD in the perfect way, which I really am thankful now that I can put to words. The FMOD is quite close to the DAW side of things rather than the engine and programming side of things. And this is an example of that, right? It's you can still manipulate the sound. The sounds are not finished being designed outside of your DAW. You still got like an extra, I don't know, 20% that you can add to it, right? The pitching up, the layering. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, in with Go Mecha Ball, it's more like 50 or even 60%.
Right.
Like I use FMOD like a lot for, the sound creation sound, because like all of these are just source, ping, pong, bong, and kind of sounds. But the sum of them actually happens inside FMOD, and like the mastering of the sounds and so on and so on happens actually inside FMOD. And there is a lot of power in doing things like that, but it's also a lot of work.
It's worth it though. It's worth it, I'm sure. That's awesome, man. I have a more direct question. Do you use any snapshots? And if you do, which one
Actually,
is
I'll get back to that. Sorry,
Yeah, go for it, go for it.
So impacts. We were talking about impacts. So we had the player ball collision impact. Then we have the enemy get hit, and then on top of these, we also have materials. I touched upon this last time, but I'll go for it again. So we have the player ball impact, then we have the enemy get hit impact, and then on top we have the material sounds of both the player and the enemy. And I kind of count this as part of this interaction too. We have the material sounds of the wall, of the floor, or of the ceiling that it might hit. Either one of you might hit the player or the enemy. So we have all these materials too. A lot of the enemies use Metal Hollow. That's why I've named it Enemy Metal Hollow. So we have not just an impact of Metal Hollow, we have two different versions of Metal Hollow. We have Impact Hard. So this is a hard object colliding with a hard object. Or this is like, sorry, a hard object colliding. Then we also have a soft object colliding, but this is the hard one. Again, it's very similar. We have light, medium, and hard. And usually I have more of the medium one because those are the most common collisions in the game. And then we have a size parameter. So we might have a smaller or bigger enemy. So that's, colliding maximum collision with a very small enemy. Medium-sized enemy, somewhere around here. Then a very, very, very large. This is never actually used, but technically could be used. So we have all these kind of options to play with.
That's awesome. The level of detail is astounding. Amazing.
So the soft one is just a softer object being used when recording impacts. Yeah.
So cool. There's so much detail, so much information to be given with sound, right?
Yeah. And I almost forgot. We also have the mixer side of the collisions as well. So I'm mostly at least in this version, I'm mostly only ducking the music or adjusting the music with stuff like hitting. When you are in mech mode, the music is somewhat normal. When you go into ball mode, there's a lot of bass happening, so I have cut bass instead of boosting. It used to be boosted, but then I'm guessing that it was too much bass, so I then cut the bass, which makes complete sense. Funny little tidbit, if you see kind of weird values sometimes, like over here attack is 420, it's probably been one of these. I don't know what value to put, so I'll just put something. And apparently this has worked until release. So
Game is out.
a bit
Game
of,
is out.
yeah. Yeah, so lots of 69s and 420s around and 666s. Those are like my placeholder numbers. If I'm like, come up with something else, or if this works, keep it. And
Yeah,
apparently that has
the
worked.
go-to number, right? So yeah.
Yeah. And this is unrelated. So wait, actually, I'll go back. So here we see some of that ducking stuff. I'm ducking the frequencies with a multiband EQ of the music when things happen. So enemy damage, then the sound effects in general duck things. So they're ducking B, which I'm guessing is somewhere in the, yeah, 1K. 1K area. Enemies getting hit will lower some of the base area. Yep, 260. And player weapons duck, I'm guessing, oh, mids. They're ducking mids. Yeah. So I'm doing like, kind of light ducking. It's small amounts because I don't want the music to go like all the time. It's more like it's very, very slight movements.
Right. So you're just making a little bit of space in the music, which is normally always playing, right? Unless somebody decides to turn it off, but why would they do
Yeah.
that? Right. A little bit of space by ducking the EQ. So the EQ, these little notches go down a little
Mhm.
in decibels. Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that combined with the player being as in a ball when dashing and hitting things because you're ducking the base now. And when you're hitting things that duck even more of the base, the kind of punch of the base becomes more prominent of that interaction.
Gotcha.
Um,
Amazing. Fantastic.
and as I'm looking at this, I'm noticing I have notes over here. This is something I've been doing, well, recently. This is years ago, but recently. I've been writing down different timings of like tempo things. So one big thing about the overall sound of Go Mecha Ball is the tempo. All of the songs are 172 beats per minute because that's the BPM of the game. And how I come up with that is I have a metronome. I capture gameplay video and I would just tap on a metronome, like a tap tempo thing, to see what is the most common BPM I'm getting. Like anywhere, I would just jump into the different parts of the game and just tap while looking at the gameplay, and I'd be like, okay, this is the value, and I would write the most common values down. And in Go Mecha Ball, 172 BPM was like almost all of the time.
So this
Like
is
that's the value. Hmm.
this is you watching gameplay clips with absolutely no audio yet. So you're just
Hmm.
getting a feel for like the actions that take place,
Hmm.
different things that occur.
Yes, yes. And when I have that BPM, it allows me to kind of use those as very good starting points with anything that requires like millisecond info, like timing info, like compressors or anything like that. So then I can make subgroups out of those, like, okay, this is a fast attack, this is a slow attack, this is a medium attack or release. And I would, use those values. And then I would tweak if need be, because sometimes having things off tempo also helps for different feelings.
Interesting. So you
Yeah.
say like your side chains your attack and release are trying to be in time with the music essentially.
Yes, at times, not always. Like these are definitely not really on times because I can see over here. But like these, 44 milliseconds, and that is in 172 BPM, 44 milliseconds.
Amazing. That's so
Yeah,
interesting, so intricate, so detailed and focused.
yeah, and you can see here 174. Yep, that's for the attack. 44 for the release, stuff like that.
I just also like to bring, I know like the compressor is one compressor with a bunch of sidechains, but you have a distortion in there, you have a high pass, you have a few compressors, EQs, I guess, which are quite low, but reverb. You have a ton of plugins, and this is just one instance. Like again, if this isn't a good example for the fact that we have more budget than we're allowing ourselves, I don't know what is.
Yeah. I mean, if you like the sound effects group, I mean, it's EQ, free compressors. Let's go. And not just that. This is the master bus for the sound effects. Then we have all the subgroups with their own compressors and distortions and whatever else, EQs. Yeah.
The presses are interesting because I see that you're using the like, three instead of one technique, I assume, instead of just doing, or are they just doing different things?
They're all kind of acting as one, but they are doing different things. And I've noticed that this is how I like to kind of work with compressors, even when I'm doing whatever. If you have just one compressor and you're overworking it, I mean, it can work, like, why not? But like, I like to kind of think in phases, like you have one compressor doing kind of the bulk of the work, but after that you will still get some kind of a signal with transient response. Then I would have something to smoothen something from that. And then maybe like here I have three compressors, then I have a third compressor that's even more fine-tuning things, and that's depending on thresholds as well. Like if you have like some really loud sounds happening and I want to do something to them, I have this compressor with a minus 10 dB threshold. This is minus 20, which is after the minus 23 one. And they're relatively small ratios except for the loud compressor. Like when loud sounds happen, like loud transients, that's when I'm doing things over here. But I'm still retaining punch because the attack is relatively slow with 60 milliseconds. So
And
I'm not taking away punch, but I'm just taking away like extra, taming extra kind of extra too much noise.
makes sense. I was also going to ask, for those people who don't know pre or post fader, why have you put all your compressors like pre fader and then all your other effects post fader, if you remember?
So with this one specifically, let's see.
Yeah, I
Well,
get
the
this
fader
example.
is the master fader for the group.
Hmm.
So that kind of everything's happening before the fader. So I have, volume, whatever's happening. Oh, when am I showing my fingers? Whatever's happening here, whatever is happening here happens before this main fader. So I have all this, whatever's happening here, I can adjust still with this, like the actual output of what's happening. Um, but then I want to use whatever this volume is to act as the sidechain sends. So when I've set the sound of what I want the things to be, then I would, send that info to with what I want to adjust with that. That
Right.
was a weird sentence, if that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
yeah, it makes sense, right? Because you're adjusting, you're mixing the game, so you want a certain amount of this to come through, and if you want to lower it, then that will also affect how much side chain is needed afterwards. Yeah, great.
Yeah, and there's things like reverb. Like if I would have this reverb send, I guess yeah, that's if I have it here before this fader, if we pause the game, I'm using volume to go down. I would still be sending everything that's happening in the game that's not stopped. That would still go to the reverb, and we would hear that. If I have it after the thing, now it's not sending anything to the reverb because there's nothing to be sent.
Makes sense. Fantastic.
Yeah. This is Go Mecha Ball, and this whole system, all in all, will probably only be Go Mecha Ball. I probably won't be doing like all this craziness on another project. I did it here, it worked for this, it was the spirit of this project. Another project will have its own thing, or not, who knows? Like, you never know. I think you should always design with the project first and then see kind of what fits that. Like all of these things I made because it was all procedural. I needed to find ways to cater to how the game works. Like another game, I might just use, just a single sound in an event, and that's fine. But in this one, I needed to do things to kind of keep up with the game because we had so many cool things with the procedural stuff. And if I just had one sound that I would, pitch random or something, it just wouldn't sell the feeling of like a spider moving. Like, let me actually show you move leg. So I have 51 different variations apparently of stuff like this. And then I have a little synth. That's like, 20 something variations. So if I had just one sound, it would just be like tee, 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 not quite selling the movement, random movement. It's
That's
just a lot
awesome.
of random stuff like this.
That's so cool. So cool. Do you add any variation in that apart from the actual sounds that you add, like within F?
Sometimes I do. With this, I didn't. But yeah, I might have like pitch random or volume random stuff. Let's see if footstep. This probably has, yeah, pitch randomization. That's when the foot actually hits the ground. And then again, this would play with two different materials, the material you hit and the actual material of the character. Then move leg. Probably. Oh no, pitch random. Okay. So again, like every time, because it's procedural animation, I have that plays whenever a kind of a bigger joint of the character moves. So like legs, they might have like knees when the knee moves, the joint of the knee does something. Yeah,
So cool. So cool. So much detail.
yeah. It was fun. It was a lot of work, but it was fun. It was really fun. And again, coming up with the chassis and the chassis and the shape, well, the shape of the chassis and the materials, and if you had like an enemy, like we have these enemies that have this kind of winding key thing in World 3. Let's see if I find a fun one. A sniper. Sniper has one. I would have like separate things for the winding key. And this is just using pitch and volume. So an enemy would shoot. They would shoot at you, and then their winding key would just go crazy. Or some of them might, load up an attack or something.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So tell me now, why couldn't you have baked in that effect into the sound effect and not done all of this live processing?
Because it's all procedural. The timings can change depending on moment to moment stuff. We did not have animation frames. We have zero animation frames. Everything's live processed. Things can affect other things. So I had to design, all of my sound design and music design is based on the proceduralness of the game. So there's no, like if I would ask, okay, how long does like the winding thing take? The answer could be, I mean, however long it takes.
That's great. It's the perfect argument and example to for what adaptivity is, adaptive audio, you know? Things
Yeah.
are adaptive. We don't know when things are going to happen.
So yeah, we have a lot of stuff like this. Ammo belt jiggle. So when it shoots, it has a little ammo belt that jiggles, or when it moves. So yeah, the enemies it's kind of funny because when you play the game, you don't really, these are things that you don't really think about as a player, and you shouldn't really. Like actually, there's a saying that I kind of hate that people, controversial, what people say is like the best sound is when you don't notice it. But I think that's bullshit. I think the best sound is when player goes, hell yeah, that was cool.
I
It
agree.
can be small things. Yeah.
I agree. I also like the compliment that, oh, the game just feels amazing. Like that's a compliment to everyone, right? Nothing's
Yes,
sticking out. The art's not sticking out. The mechanics, the audio's not sticking out. Everything's working as one. I have a really
exactly.
interesting thought that just came to my mind
Hmm.
of like a little experiment to be like, how much of a difference would it be if you took out all of these little extra bits that you've added, like the ammo belt, for instance, and
Hmm.
just the bare bones, like core sounds in the game, and then played the game? I wonder how that would affect the game feel.
Yeah, actually, I did experiment with these things. Like I would just make the faders zero, and I would try out things. But I don't know if this is just me. It could be just me, but like the more things I took away, I was like kind of noticing when I took things away, like the characters just did not come alive. And we would sometimes have like bugs where some sound wouldn't trigger, and I would be like, this enemy feels off somehow. And they started getting like these personalities. Like when they had these small things, they had these personalities. And when someone was losing a bit of that personality, it would feel like something's wrong with them. Like I mean, this might be just, my weird brain, but I kind of started going like, hey, something feels off with this character. And then I would kind of look at triggers with the FMOD profiler, like what are you receiving? And I would be like, oh, you are not receiving your height adjust loop or something. And I'm like, why are you being quiet? And then I would go to the programmer, hey, this dude is being quiet. Can we check this out? And we are like, oh yeah, we forgot to add this thing. Bang, and we put it back and it was all right again.
It's a really interesting commentary because, like, in real life, we all make sounds that we don't even notice. We make like Foley and stuff, things. And you're absolutely right. I think if we took them out, like our movement of clothes and stuff that's so quiet, like, but it's there. Everything does not sound natural. And I like that word, not realistic, but natural, because each game is not realistic. It's got its own realism, but it should sound natural and convincing within that realism, right?
Yeah, exactly. Within that world. I used to have intros for these, but now we changed how bosses work, and now I trigger it whenever a boss becomes kind of active or when the player hits the arena floor. That's when, like, imagine the player jumping, and then... So this is phase 1, then let's go to phase 2. Go to phase 3. And now the boss has the last remaining health remaining. Again. And now the boss dies. And all this, there's sound effects on top as well, like stinger sounds and, the boss itself. Yeah.
Amazing. So cool. And I can see at the bottom, you've got the enemy death multi-instrument to play every time one of them dies. You've also got a end to play, I assume, like a sound effect or something.
Oh yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah.
Nice. Really cool, man. And the music, as always, is so cool. So glitchy.
Yeah, thanks. Wait, actually, is there anything? Let's see. Does this boss do it? Wait. So, okay, I'll quickly. This is a noisy track, but there's some fun stuff. Like we have. Let me just quickly test. So in addition to changing parts, when the boss is about to change phase, with the World 1 boss, it jumps into this wall. That's when I bring those weird ass noises. Then when it jumps back, when it collides with the ground again, we change the music part and the boss music charge goes back to 0.
And that's a parameter, not something that's baked in.
Yeah.
Can we hear that again?
Yeah. So this is what actually happens. This is really hard to do with a mouse. So now it jumps back to the ground. Then it jumps back again. Back to ground. Let's see. Where am I? Here. So
Amazing.
damn noisy.
Amazing. So cool. I hear as well like the low health layer comes in, right? The high
Yeah,
percussion.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. So this is basically, well, then actually, then we also, oh, no, no, no. I'm sorry. We have a few more things on the music side that I could show quickly that can be potentially interesting to someone. So with shops are a place where you can also, I think, implement a lot of character. And it's kind of funny in lots of games, especially like roguelike games and stuff. The shop has its own kind of little piece of music and stuff. I was thinking, okay, I like that idea. How can we make something extra for a shop? So I made something called Music Buy. So when you buy something from a shop, there's like a little melody that comes on top. So let's take this one. This is a nice one. So now I'm browsing wares in the shop. Then I buy something. Then I leave the shop.
So cool. So cool.
Yeah. And this is something that not a lot of people have maybe noticed. And this is one of the things I really enjoy in the game. So you have menu music in games, something that didn't really bother me, but I was always thinking like it'd be fun if the menu music actually changes. And I experimented this back in the day with a game called Scourgebringer, or Scourgebringer, however you pronounce it in English. In that, I did this interactive menu system. Actually, there's a YouTube video of that. Go and check it out. But for the viewers, that is. I was thinking, what if the menu music changes depending on your progression in the game? So this is the first time you boot the game. The very first boot. Then you enter the game for the first time. So when you go back to menu after entering the game for the first time, you get this little melody. And a fun thing about this melody is the root note of every, like all the songs follow a circle of fifths kind of a thing. So the melody is kind of a note of every world's first note as a thought. So world 1 boss is dead. When you go back to menu, you will have bass. So let's enter world 2. So when you go back to menu after entering world 2, you will have this. Let's kill the boss. Drums appear. And so on and so on and so on. Let's go from... So when you kill the final boss, you get an harmony for the melody. And then when you beat the game you get these glitch modes. So I think this is actually currently not implemented in the game. It should be, but for some reason it broke at some point. I need to remind them, but maybe it is now. I'm not sure. So you get glitch versions. Play so we get all glitch versions. Close enough. So you go into the options page, go to the credits page, then the armory page. Everything always sounds better slowed down. Start again. So yeah, that's how the main menu.
Amazing.
So yeah,
such an interesting space to reward the player, and I don't think enough games take advantage of the menu music.
agree. And so integral of the game, because always when you boot the game, that's the first thing you will usually see.
Right. It's the first
So yeah.
impression you get. And I think it's wasted space if it's just a track that barely loops. Amazing. So cool to see.
Yeah. And in the game, we have this hub area, which is after the menu. Again, a potential place to play stuff into. I will not go through all of the I will not go through all of the parameters because there's a lot of them. So again, I use the world progression thing here too. And I use FMOD as well in a bunch of ways here. So the music is kind of semi-generative. Lots of scatter instruments. Then world progression is here as well. Where are you? Here. Subtle small things to kind of give some movement to a familiar place. And we have shops. Not shops, but these unlock machines. You can put coins into them to unlock permanent upgrades and stuff. Here. That's placing a coin into an upgrade machine. Then it kind of spins around and then it spits out an upgrade ball at you. Let's see if this is the right one. Damn, I don't remember how this works anymore. I'm sorry. But yeah, when it spits out the thing, you pick it up. Oh man. Yeah.
That's sick.
I can't remember how this works. But...
Yeah. I'm gonna get a video of this the store and you putting a coin in.
And then we also have the tutorial in the hub. So I have all these enemy death and stuff for the when you enter a tutorial, the music changes as well. But I'm using some of the same instruments and elements for the tutorial, but pitched down or adjusted in some way. So now in the tutorial I'm killing enemies. I killed the last enemy. Then we go back to the hub area. Well, it actually slides smoothly, not like that. But I can't remember. Is it here? Yes. So we have this exit pipe that takes you, not exit pipe, exit portal that takes you to the actual game, like where you fight and stuff. So the closer you are to that, and then and where is it? Level complete.
How is that? How does that drum roll work? I saw it.
Wait,
volume went down.
Why didn't that play? So the exit pattern, which means when you're closer to the thing, it's just a volume automation. This is over here. And I actually have it reversed. There was a reason to this. It was some kind of a bug. I had to reverse this because I had it the other way around, but it would always play a little snippet when... Oh, yes, now I remember. Because we have a lot of things in the game, we have kind of not hard-coded, but like globally coded things. So when we have a level portal open, I think that will always tell FMOD, hey, arena cleared is 1. So I had to make it so that, okay, arena clear is 1, so let's make the 0 volume at 1. And if I start it like this, that it's full speed at 0, when we go into the hub, you'd hear like this. No. And then we do that. I don't know, it's kind of a loading thing. Like not really a bug, but it's like a loading priority, some kind of a thing. So I had to reverse it like this. So there's lots of weird stuff like that.
That's awesome.
I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. It was all great. All the music, all these little. I wish I asked you sooner about the music. It's great.
Yeah.
There's loads there, man.
Yeah.
We can call it there because otherwise I'm going to take up
Yeah.
another hour of your time.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Dude, that
So
was
that is essentially that's how Go Mecha Ball, the sounds and music works roughly. Yeah.
epic. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you so much.
Isakol on Twitter.
And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did chatting with Joonas. If you did, please leave a comment below and let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.